Hello everyone and welcome back to the Belgian Beer Brothers channel. Yeah, we're gonna do another beer review, and today we are gonna talk about this lovely non-labeled bottle. It isn't a blank bottle, it does have a lovely branded bottle cap, but more about that later. Today we are going to talk about a different style of beer, or actually we're not going to talk about the style. I'll make a separate video about that and I'll just put it online as a bonus somewhere. But we are going to talk about a Trappist beer. And actually you have heard about this one in a previous video and you'll find out in just a minute. We are talking about Westvleteren Blond. Used to be known as Westvleteren 6. The Westvleteren story starts all the way back in 1814. Sort of, kind of. In 1814 there was a recluse in the woods around Westvleteren called Jan Baptist Victor, and he lived as a hermit in the woods, somewhere in between the three cloisters that surrounded those forests. All was going well until in 1831 a group of monks that got cast away from Mont des Cats, or Katsberg, or Cat Mountain, came to Westvleteren, joined Jan Baptist and started the Sint-Sixtus Abbey. Now, for more details about this, I will link the story of Mont des Cats. We're not going to talk about that again. So, Sint-Sixtus Abbey was started. Now, of course, new people, more people, means they need more space. And right off the bat they started renovating the whole abbey. In 1838, 7 years later, it is said that they started brewing. Why did they start brewing? First off, as far as we know, to make a bit of money and to provide. They also made cheese and other things. Bread, for example. But it is said as well that the builders that helped renovate the abbey put in their contract that they got 2 glasses of beer a day. And the story goes that brewing it themselves was cheaper than buying the beer, and this way they also could control the quality of the beer. And if you should believe the story, they made a rather light beer of under 2% ABV. Haven't found any sources to confirm this, so yeah, let's see it as a nice side story. Anywho, 1 year later, in 1839, King Leopold I of Belgium signed the first official brewer's license for the Sint-Sixtus Abbey. So, starting from 1839, they had a license for commercial brewing. Now, commercial here meant for the village around the abbey. Fast forward 1 decade, 1849, things are going well, the abbey is growing, and they built an entire new church and a complete monastery. Another decade later, 1860, the abbey expands a bit more. They built extra stables, some sheds, a complete guest house, and even a second brewery. Still a small brewery, but a second brewery nonetheless. We keep jumping in decades. In 1978, the tavern that was connected to the abbey, called De Vrede, or the Peace, or Inner Peace, apparently has an awesome turnover. And a great turnover means a lot of beer is being sold and they have to raise their capacity. This meant that during the 1880s, they hit the ceiling for capacity. So in 86, they started building the third brew house. Now, of course, they didn't have 3 brew houses, they just renewed it. And building took the better part of 10 years. So in 1896, the third brew house was finally finished. This was sufficient for about 20 years, but in 1922 the brewery had to expand again, and they actually kept expanding for a while, because in 1927 the first steam-powered brew was produced. So in the 5 years between 1922 and 1927, they put in a steam machine, steam-powered kettles, and some extra equipment. So yeah, things were going well. Now, the steam-powered machines and the kettles that they put in by 1927 were actually used up until 1990. It's not that long ago. Of course, the war hit the brewery as well. They were lucky in the First World War. They weren't occupied by the Germans, and they actually took care of the wounded people. And even in the Second World War, they didn't lose their copper. They could keep their kettles. They even could keep brewing, but energy got very expensive. And this is when the brewmaster decided that brewing was too expensive, so they actually scaled down a whole bunch. They limited the brewing inside the Abbey and actually licensed Saint Bernardus at Watou. You might know it from the Abdij beers, Abdij 12, which is said to be the same beer as Westvleteren 12. Spoiler alert, it's not. But yeah, this comes from somewhere, and part of what kept this myth alive is that Watou actually brewed Westvleteren for quite some time. So in 1945 they licensed it to Watou, and in 1962, when the license ended, they actually extended that license for another 30 years, so up until 1992. In the meantime, Westvleteren kept brewing, but in very limited quantities. In the early 70s, the monks of Westvleteren ran into some quality problems, and they even had a few recalls of their products, and they couldn't find the problem, so they called in help, of course. Monks helping monks, Trappist monks helping Trappist monks. They called in the awesome brother Thomas, the brewmaster from Westmalle Trappist brewery. Father Thomas comes in, analyzes the entire process, and discovers that with some minor adjustments they could keep brewing, and yeah, all would be well. Apparently the problem was a slight lack of knowledge about hygiene during the brewing process. So they didn't sterilize enough, they might have not sanitized enough, maybe didn't work cleanly after the cooking step. We'll never know because they're not that open about that, but something in that range. They've worked on that for quite a while, and between 1976 and 1978 they even replaced some equipment. They replaced the open cool ship with a closed wort cooler. They put in 6 open fermenters, so 6 open yeast barrels. And you'd say, why open fermenters if the cooling vessel had to be closed? Well, it's in another location, it's in a controlled environment, but they still had to have an open vessel because it's just necessary for the yeast to do its work and to create the ester profile, and with the ester profile, the taste of the beer. So if you would ferment in closed vessels, the taste would change. And back in the 70s, knowledge about yeast and microbiology wasn't that wide, actually. Nonetheless, they made all those adjustments. They put in 6 open stainless steel fermenters, and they even built a full-blown laboratory so they could they could control quality during the process, during each step of the process. They could check and adjust, while before that they could only adjust the finished product. While Father Thomas was there, they actually used liquid yeast from the Westvleteren brewery to start up those open fermenters. Okay, all's well, and in 1979 they even opened a new bottling line, with a capacity of 12,000 bottles per hour. Of course, they were brewing at Westvleteren and at Watteau as well, so a new bottling line could come in handy. Again, fast forward a bit more than a decade, 1992, the Watteau license ends and they decide to return the brewing to within the Abbey walls. Not only do they choose to, basically the European Union made them because there were some new rules, but more about that in the Trappist video. Of course, we're talking about modern times, and in 1990, so 2 years before they took back the license and they started brewing full capacity, they actually rebuilt the brew house again for the 5th time in 150 years. So in 92, all out, full-blown, full capacity brewing, and they used to have 3 beers, Westvleteren 6, 8 and 12, and they were all dark. In 99, the dark beer got replaced by the lighter Westvleteren Blond. Reminds us of the Duvel story, doesn't it? In 2013, again a new bottling line is put into place. And in 2014 they decide to scale up to not 1 brew per brewing day, but 2 brews per brewing day. Of course, this would result in major savings when it comes to energy, but also in manpower. And with a 75 hectoliter vessel, 2 brews per brewing day, about 42 brewing days per year, they ended up with about 6,000 hectoliters per year. And that is now in modern times. I think they actually scale it up again, but I haven't got those numbers. In 2016, they put in a new secondary fermentation hall, a complete water treatment plant, and a solar farm on the roof of that water treatment plant. So the monks are, modernizing still, and they're really working on their ecological footstep. But enough about the Abbey, enough about the monks. Let's talk beer. As I said, we're gonna make a separate video about the Trappists. Why? Well, I haven't got the Westvleteren glass here. My uncle has it, but it didn't find its way here. What I do have is this very cute authentic Trappist product tasting glass, an 18 centiliter chalice. I actually got 2 of those, and I've got these with this lovely book, Trappist Beer from A to Z by Ben Vinken. Why am I gonna make a separate video about Trappist? Well, I want to talk about all the requirements that the beer has to meet to be called a Trappist or an authentic Trappist product. Currently we have 10 ATP certified Trappists and 3 not ATP certified Trappists. So not Trappists. And I want to get all my facts straight, so I'm gonna make that video separately. An 18 centiliter tasting glass, so that means I get to have 2 today. Of course, I could have invited a friend and shared the bottle with him, but yeah, not today, Satan. Like I said, a branded bottle cap. This is the only place, well no, it's not the only place that the bottle is branded, because of course here on the neck it says Trappist, or Trappist beer actually. Reminds us of the Westmalle bottles, so there's a lot of overlap between Westvleteren and Westmalle. Actually more between Westvleteren and Westmalle than between Westvleteren and Watu. But hey, but the bottle cap up until last year was the only place you could see which beer it was, apart from the color of course. These days, I think at the beginning of this year, these beers got a rebranding and now they actually do have a label. It's tiny, but they do have a colored label, green, yellow, blue. Alright, let's dive right in. I'm going for the ugly decapper, but that leaves my bottle cap intact. That'll make for a nice fridge magnet one day. Ooh. Immediately quite a bit of aroma. Very classic, not tropical or anything at all. Like, of course you wouldn't expect that from this beer, but rather malty, a bit bitter dry. Actually smells like a strong lager or a Pilsner beer. Now, about this beer, this is a 6% ABV blonde, so it is actually, yeah, comparable to a strong lager. But this is a classic Trappist, unfiltered, unpasteurized, brewed within the Abbey walls. It is only sold on site, and it's not near where I live, so this is not a beer for every week. But this beer has a main fermentation of 7 days in the open fermentation vessels, then a second fermentation of 5 to 12 weeks. Now this one is the 5 weeks, the 12 is the 12 weeks, and it's not called 12 because of the ABV, by the way, because it's only a 10.5. But that's another beer. And then it's re-fermented in the bottle for 2 weeks in a warm cell, after which it's placed in a cooling and I'd say shipped off, but they don't ship. This really smells absolutely lovely. I haven't had this beer before, by the way. Actually, my dad gave me this as a gift. My uncle visits the brewery quite often. It's his favorite beer. He always has a crate at home. And he got some to my dad. Now I have one. Exactly one. Thanks, Dad. That is absolutely beautiful. Oh yeah, I love this. It's quite pale, golden yellow. Very white foam. Now we do know that the Trappist monks don't use any additives, so This is all natural. For an unfiltered and unpasteurized beer that re-ferments in the bottle, this is very, very clear. Now there is residue at the bottom, so I'm gonna leave the sediment where it is and not disturb it too much. Oh, fantastic smell. I absolutely love this already. Haven't tasted one bit, but I'm already in love. Ooh. A lot more bitterness than it smells. It has a very thin mouthfeel. Yeah. It actually comes in like a lager. But it is more crisp, more clear, and absolutely more bitter. Oh, it's very unfortunate that this is so hard to get, because I could drink this all evening. This isn't that special in a way that it's not like a hazy, fruity, exotic IPA or a dry hop saison or whatchamacallit. But this is just a absolutely beautifully well-made classic beer. I actually can't imagine this ever having been a dark beer, so this must be a completely different recipe. Because I just can't imagine combining this hoppy taste with dark malts or anything. Now, some people say that the Westvleteren 12 is the best beer in the world, and I believe actually Michael Jackson also said that once. That might very well be. I know that Westvleteren, or the Sint-Sixtus Abbey, has been called the 4th best brewery in the world as well. But I absolutely love this one. I've never had it before, and I'm very, very pleasantly surprised. I'm actually gonna ask my uncle to get me a crate as well, because this is one of the most crisp, clear, lovely beers I've ever had in this segment. And again, as you guys know, I love the bitterness, I love the dryness, and this has a very refreshing character. It keeps its aroma very well too. Very thirst quenching as well. Of course, that's the bitterness. And only 6%. This day and age, we drink a lot of craft beers, we drink a lot of specialty beers, Abbey beers, and we forget that there's something beneath 10%. Anywho, I'm gonna round up here. I'm gonna have me the rest of the bottle. As usual, if you have any questions, any remarks, let me know in the comments. If you like the video, hit the thumbs up, and if you want to see more, subscribe and hit the bell icon. You will get notified when I upload something. I think we have 6 or 7 videos to go after this one, and then we are gonna pump out one a day for December. So yeah, I'll keep you guys posted. Keep an eye out, and let's have some fun together. Cheers, you guys.